When did you single out the bloodiest movie about bullying at school? I think this is the bloodiest movie about bullying your classmates. Stay with me, and you will see all the bloody, and not only bloody scenes of this movie. When Nozaki opened her shoe locker, she found it missing again, stolen by her usual bullies. They tossed it into a landfill pit, forcing her to go down and retrieve it. She slipped, covering herself in mud as the group laughed. After a brief stare down, Taiko left, and the others followed, leaving Nozaki to return home dirty, only to be met by her little sister and parents, who were devastated at her state. The next day, her father went to the school to address the bullying issue. Nozaki's homeroom teacher, Kyoko, refused to get involved, downcast, suggesting to let it be, as the school would close permanently after graduation. As Nozaki's father left, Kuga kicked him in the back, using shoes fitted with thumbtacks. In the classroom, the boys' harassment escalated as they placed a dead crow in Nozaki's desk. They taunted the teacher, daring her to act, but she ignored them. Aba stepped up to defend Nozaki, causing Kuga to temporarily back down. Unable to bear the cruelty any longer, the teacher rushed into the corridor, where she vomited from stress. At home, Nozaki's mother tended to her father's injuries. He advised Nozaki not to return to school, telling her to lay low for the remaining 2 months before graduation. With Nozaki absent, the group grew restless and decided to target Rumi instead. Yoshi ordered her to check on Nozaki and bring her back or face bullying herself, stabbing her with a pin to make the point clear. At Nozaki's home, Rumi pretended to check in on her and tried to borrow a music CD, secretly taking a photo of her as proof. She admitted she'd be the new target if Nozaki didn't return. Nozaki, however, told her she wouldn't be going back. Rumi soon became the bully's new victim. They trapped her in a locker, taunting her and giving Nozaki's music CD to Taiko. Meanwhile, Nozaki enjoyed a walk with her little sister along a forest trail, where they ran into Aiba. Her sister asked to take a picture of them, delighting in their resemblance to a couple. In the classroom, Taiko nonchalantly cut Rumi's hair, grinning to earn the group's approval, and, more importantly, Taiko's. Yoshi told Rumi that all the suffering would stop if she just brought Nozaki back. She insisted that Nozaki was to blame for everything, pushing Rumi into declaring that she wanted Nozaki dead. Later, Nozaki went on a walk with Ai. Her sister gave her a necklace, and, before waving them off, sweetly called them a couple. The two stopped to rest on a bridge with a view of the city, their hands touching tenderly. They continued along a stream as Aiba snapped photos of Nozaki in the fading daylight. On their way back home, they encountered Risako and Yuri, who quickly hurried away. In the distance, Nozaki saw a fire. It was her home. With her family still inside, Nozaki broke down in tears, but Aiba rushed inside and managed to save her little sister. Miraculously, she survived and was taken to the hospital. Nozaki's grandfather solemnly confirmed the deaths of her parents. He then sat beside Nozaki, keeping vigil over her sister. He shared that her father had shielded her sister by holding her close, ensuring she wouldn't burn. The following day, Nozaki moved in with her grandfather. Meanwhile, the group was overcome with guilt. Risako and Yuri feared they might get caught, but Kuga reassured them that there was no evidence. Despite the gravity of the situation, Rumi appeared satisfied with herself. Taiko sat alone in class when Rumi eagerly approached her. Rumi wanted to confess what she had done to Nozaki's family, but Taiko stabbed her with a pencil. After school, when Rumi returned home, her father was waiting for her. He disapproved of her dream to become a beautician and told her she would not be going to Tokyo for it. He reminded her that he controlled her future. Much to her dismay, Aikawa and Mamiya were shooting crows with an airsoft gun and a crossbow. Aikawa confided in Mamiya that he had felt exhilarated during the day. He shot a crow, and Mamiya laughed, calling him twisted for finding enjoyment in it. Meanwhile, Rumi's obsession with Taiko became more evident as she filled her notebook with drawings of her. She scratched her stab wound, seeming to relish the pain. Nozaki eventually returned to class, much to the surprise of everyone. Aiba offered to help her, but she brushed him off. After class, she was led by Yoshi and the others back to the pit. Risako, overwhelmed with guilt, almost confessed, but Yuri stopped her. Yoshi casually told Nozaki to kill herself before stabbing her with a pin. Nozaki fell into the pit, and the others joined in. Yoshi taunted her, claiming she felt alive after watching Nozaki's mother burn. Nozaki reached her breaking point and stabbed Yoshi in the eye with a nail. As Yoshi was dazed and confused, Nozaki grabbed a nearby pipe and smashed her head in. She then unleashed all her pent-up rage, turning her attention to the others. The group panicked and tried to escape. Risako clumsily begged for her life but lost her fingers in the process. As she writhed in pain, Nozaki turned toward Sakura. Sakura attempted to flee, injuring her heel in the process, causing her to fall and hit her head. Nozaki finished off Risako in the same brutal way she had Yoshi.on his way home. Kuga encountered Nozaki. He tried to talk to her, but she ignored him, which made him angry. When he shoved her, he realized he had been stabbed. Looking up, he saw Nozaki slashing his cheek. Kuga screamed in pain and tried to crawl away, but Nozaki pursued him, knife in hand. She followed him up a hill as he struggled to regain his footing. Kuga lost his balance and tumbled down the hill, broken and crying out in agony. Nozaki stood over him, watching as his wounds worsened. She surveyed the grisly scene before leaving him to die in the snow. Rumi received a call from Aikagawa and Mamiya, who were now suspicious that Nozaki was behind the disappearances of their friends. Mamiya warned Rumi that she could be next, as she was the mastermind. He also told her that they planned to take down Nozaki before she could come for them. The next day, they followed her into the woods. Mamiya shot at her with a crossbow, but missed. Nozaki vanished, so Mamiya handed Aikagawa a knife and declared that the hunt was on. Mamiya taunted Nozaki, shouting that he had threatened her father with the crossbow and set them on fire. Aikagawa found Nozaki first, who appeared to radiate an almost ethereal beauty. He proceeded to tackle Nozaki and pinned her to the frozen ground. He tried to kiss her, but she turned away, which infuriated him. Just as he was about to stab her, Nozaki spotted a pair of snips, jammed them up his nose, and clipped it. Aikagawa screamed in agony, and Mamiya found them. He tried to take a shot, but couldn't get a clear angle. His arrow went astray and struck Aikagawa instead. Aikagawa turned slowly, then charged toward Mamiya, yelling that he loved Nozaki. He kicked free from Mamiya's grasp, but as he turned around, Nozaki immediately stabbed him. She continued to assault him as Mamiya struggled with his guts spilling out. Aikagawa managed to reach the crossbow and painstakingly reloaded it, but Nozaki quickly stabbed him at the back of his neck. Aiba, concerned about Nozaki, came to visit her. She met him outside, and the two went for a walk to their usual spot. Aiba expressed his fear that he might never see Nozaki again, and admitted that he had always wanted to be with her. Nozaki tried to suppress her emotions by biting her lip, but she bit too hard, causing it to bleed. Unable to hold it back any longer, she broke down and let go. All the pain and anguish she'd kept inside poured out as she collapsed to the ground, sobbing. Aiba knelt beside her, comforting her, and made a solemn vow to protect her. Nozaki returned his embrace, finally realizing that she wasn't alone. Overcome with emotion, Aiba kissed her, sharing her blood on their lips as the snow fell relentlessly around them. At the hospital, Nozaki's grandfather urged her to move back to Tokyo with him once the snow melted. He was also going to transfer her little sister there, and the paperwork was already in progress. Nozaki apologized to him and her sister, telling him she wanted to stay in town. Her grandfather reassured her that it was fine. Meanwhile, Aiba was speaking to his grandmother, telling her that he planned to move to Tokyo to be with Nozaki. One night, Rumi went back to the landfill pit. While exploring, she slipped in the snow and stumbled upon the dead bodies. Frantically, she searched for her phone and called Teiko. At home, Teiko ignored the call. The next day, Rumi tried again, and this time Teiko answered. Rumi told her that Nozaki was going to kill her. Teiko dismissed Rumi's claims, but Rumi insisted that she had discovered the dead bodies of her friends at the landfill. She warned Teiko that anyone could be next. Teiko tried to reassure her, claiming she had done nothing to deserve this. Rumi then asked if Teiko hated Nozaki for taking Aiba away, but Teiko denied having any feelings for him. Rumi pressed further, asking why she allowed everyone to bully Nozaki. When Teiko couldn't respond, Rumi assumed that Teiko actually had feelings for Nozaki. Teiko hung up, and in a fit of rage, Rumi tore up all her drawings of Teiko. Confronted with the harsh truth, Teiko came to realize the consequences of her actions. She took Nozaki's music CD and went to Nozaki's house. She called out, but there was no answer. She left the CD on the doorstep, then changed her mind. As she walked back, A bus drove by, and Nozaki, sitting inside, caught her gaze. Nozaki and her grandfather got off, but Nozaki stayed behind to meet Taiko. Taiko returned the CD, and they sat down to talk about the past. It was revealed that Nozaki and Taiko had once been best friends. A flashback showed Aiba confessing his feelings to Nozaki, while Taiko watched with a look of resentment. But even then, Taiko had never been able to tell Nozaki the truth, that she wasn't jealous of Aiba, but that she wanted Nozaki all to herself. Eventually, they drifted apart, but Taiko returned, kneeling and begging for Nozaki's forgiveness. Nozaki remained silent, offering no reply. As Taiko walked back, she was suddenly attacked from behind. She narrowly managed to avoid the strike. It was Rumi, armed with a knife. Taiko also armed herself and cautiously approached, but Rumi slashed at her. Taiko backed away, and Rumi reveled in her pain, enjoying seeing the mighty Taiko scream. Taiko angrily charged at Rumi, but was struck by a rock, falling to the ground, bleeding and screaming. Rumi, on the other hand, seemed to be relishing the moment. Rumi then sprinted toward Taiko, but Taiko kicked her out of the way. As Taiko struggled to get up, Rumi stabbed her hand. She kept stabbing and stabbing, but Taiko fought back, kneeing Rumi in the stomach. Taiko grabbed Rumi's knife and condemned her for what she had done to Nozaki's family. She expressed her disgust for people who clung to her and then went mad. Taiko sarcastically asked Rumi if she thought she would earn her affection by killing Nozaki. Rumi tearfully admitted that she did it all for her. Taiko called her a murderer, and Rumi snapped. She lunged at Taiko with the knife, and Taiko prepared herself. Taiko managed to slash Rumi's face, but Rumi kept charging, ultimately stabbing Taiko in the chest. Taiko collapsed to the ground. As Taiko lay there, bleeding in the snow, Rumi walked away, telling her she admired her, but now saw her as nothing more than a dirty rag. Nozaki received a call from Aiba, who explained that he planned to move to Tokyo with her so they could live together. Nozaki replied that she might not be able to live with him. When Aiba pressed her for a reason, Nozaki explained that he would understand when spring came and that he should pursue the school he wanted. Aiba refused to accept her decision and reminded her that he had vowed to protect her. Distraught, Aiba became furious that Nozaki chose her family over him and destroyed the phone in anger. Back at his house, Aiba's grandmother was severely beaten. She asked him why he did it and if he had killed his father. Aiba replied that he had simply stopped his father from continuously beating his mother, but now he felt he had to kill his mother. As he believed she was saddened by the lack of abuse. He began washing his hands and mentioned that he would visit Nozaki's grandfather the following day. At school, Kyoko was harassed by the parents of the missing students. The group surrounded her, dragging her past the place where she had once been tormented. Yoshi's father accused her of possibly being responsible for the students' disappearance, claiming they terrified her. Kyoko snapped, unable to hold it in any longer. She lashed out at the parents, stating that she had worked hard to forget her painful past, and all she wanted was to go to school, even if it meant being a teacher. She vomited again and stormed out of the room. The parents chased after her, and in her frantic escape, Kyoko tripped on the road. Just as a snowplow came into view, she stared at it and finally found a sense of peace. Meanwhile, Nozaki was on her way to the hospital to visit her little sister, but found Rumi there. Rumi was about to harm her sister again. Nozaki glared at her with murderous intent. Rumi told her that it was pointless, but she was taken aback when she saw the sister sitting up. Nozaki started choking her, but she got distracted by the medical equipment, allowing Rumi to escape. Aiba visited Nozaki at the hospital, but a nurse informed her that her grandfather had been attacked at home. Nozaki saw him being wheeled in, and the realization of who was responsible hit her. Nozaki chased Aiba down a forest path and confronted him. She demanded to see his hands, but he kept them hidden. She forced them out and saw the raw, bloody wounds. Aiba explained that the injuries were from trying to convince both his grandmother and Nozaki's grandfather that they had to be together. He insisted that they all needed to understand this. He tried to embrace Nozaki, but she pulled away. That's when Rumi appeared out of nowhere. A flashback showed the group with Rumi. Rumi declared her intent to kill Nozaki, but the others hesitated. She then insisted she would pour kerosene and set her on fire. The next scene showed Rumi carrying a heavy petrol can, with the group urging her on. Rumi reaffirmed her resolve and looked to Taiko for approval. Taiko dismissed them and left. Rumi smiled, satisfied, as she watched Taiko go. They reached Nozaki's house, and Rumi began dousing it with kerosene. Nozaki's mother stepped outside and told them to stop. But Rumi even poured kerosene on her. Kuga threatened her with a lit match. While Mamiya expressed his desire to see a person burn, the match ignited Kuga's hand, forcing him to drop it, which set the house and Nozaki's mother on fire. Nozaki's father arrived and tried to help her, but Mamiya shot him. Rumi poured more kerosene inside the house, ignoring the little sister's cries. The father desperately tried to shield his daughter. Rumi lit a match, much to the horror of the other girls. She dropped it, setting the family ablaze. They fled, leaving the family to burn. Rumi cruelly taunted Nozaki, like a deranged lunatic, recounting the scene and describing the smell of her burning family. Nozaki ran toward her in a fit of rage, but Rumi was prepared. She stabbed Nozaki in the stomach. Nozaki staggered and fell backward. Aba rushed to her side and started beating Rumi. In a blind rage, he pummeled her with punch after punch. Rumi collapsed slowly onto the ground. Aba then stood up, grabbed a nearby branch, and stabbed Rumi in the neck. After she was dead, he turned to Nozaki and reassured her that everything was now okay. However, Nozaki soon discovered Aba's secret photos when his bag fell, revealing his hidden stash. The scene shows his father and sister engulfed in flames. Aba tells Nozaki that he was so moved by his father's heroic actions during the fire that he had to take a photo of it. He had planned to show it to Nozaki one day, since his father was the ideal father figure to him. In a moment of twisted satisfaction, Aba retrieved his camera and snapped a picture of her, but his attention shifted to the blooming liver leaf flower nearby. Aba compared the flower to Nozaki, admiring her strength and resilience. He then told her that if she promised to live with him, he would save her, otherwise she would die there. Raising his camera for a final shot, Aba prepared to take one last picture of her. Nozaki reached for Mamiya's crossbow buried in the snow, aimed, and fired. The arrow pierced through the camera and struck Aba in the head. He dropped the camera and collapsed, lifeless. Nozaki attempted to walk away, but her injuries were too severe. She cast one final glance at her necklace before crumbling to the ground. Sometime later, on the day of the school's graduation, Taiko had survived. When her name was called, she gracefully accepted her diploma. After the ceremony, she returned to the classroom, reflecting on a cherished memory with Nozaki. The two had promised to go to Tokyo together. They had gazed out the window in excitement. As Taiko also looked out the window, she remembered the song from Nozaki's CD. Nozaki had wanted her to hold her head up high and to continue living on.